So how's it going, guys? This is Rio Murata, photographer based in Tokyo. So this is another episode of, not another episode, a new episode actually, of Rio Murata makes a new website again. So people who follow me, or maybe my parents who found out my YouTube channel, may or may not know that I did own a website, and a fellow commenter follower actually asked me if I had a website, and the answer is yes and no. Actually, I owned one, but I think it was like 8 to 9 years back when I was in photography school. I actually made a website under Squarespace, and back then, if I'm right, Squarespace was founded I think 10 years ago, if I'm right. And if you were about to like make a website 8 to 10 years ago, you only had like three options, which is Wix, WordPress, and Squarespace, and that's basically it. And I never looked into other like companies because those three were the top three back then. And if I'm right, back then, if not mistaken, when I actually signed up for Squarespace, it was really affordable. It was like, I think $10 or so after the discounts and stuff like that. And I signed up for like 1 year, made a website, and after 1 year passed, I completely forgot about my website and at the same time, I forgot to like renew that contract, and it got expired, and I don't know what happened. My credit card company sort of stopped paying it, and I did not know until further notice, and I was like busy with life, and I never paid that much attention to my website at all. So fast forward to around 2020, so like 2-3 years ago, if I'm right, a lot have changed. Like I said, I went to a photography school. I graduated from there, and after that, I started working as an assistant photographer at an advertising agency. Felt compelled and changed jobs, and instead became an e-commerce photographer in a different company, and started to shoot with a film camera on the weekends while I shot with digital on the weekdays. So a lot have changed, and along when I started shooting with film cameras, I started to like visit like random locations, started to travel, and all these like photos that I shot with my film camera started to pile up, and I started to like reconsider it might be a great time to sort of like invest in a website again, to sort of like post my photos for my parents and for my friends to see what I shoot, and at the same time sort of showcase my works, what I do for a living. And I thought that would be a nice thing to do, and also share with people who follow me. And when I rechecked the Squarespace sort of like website, they actually jacked up the price from $10 to $16 per month, so which equates to $192 per year. And if you guys know, I live in Tokyo, I live in Japan, which we pay in yen. The US dollar right now is sky high, and compared to any other currency in the market, in the forex exchange market, it's like really volatile right now, and the dollar is so expensive right now that if I pay in Japanese yen, like $192 becomes 24,500 yen, which is mind-blowing. It's like really expensive. It's like more than $200 if you're a Japanese person. So I was like really compelled of whether or not if I should like sign up or not. And this sort of like promotion banner, I know you know what I'm talking about. A lot of companies try to like force you to purchase their products by sort of like offering some kind of discount, and Squarespace had a discount going on their website. On the top that said, for your first year you will get a 20-30% discount, and I fell for it. I ended up like signing for it, and I thought, oh, okay, you got me. So I basically signed up for the 1 year contract. And what was interesting is about this is that, like I said, I made my Squarespace account like 8 to 10 years ago, and I thought I lost all my data, but when I actually re-signed up and got the discount actually, although they said for new people who are signing up, but I was a returning customer, I still got the discount. What was interesting was that my old website actually remained the way it was, which was really nice. So this is like something great for people who might sign up for just 1 year, make a website, and if you don't feel into like making or maintaining that website, you can basically sign off. And when you come back, they actually retain that whole like format that you have created. So this was really interesting because then I only had to like I didn't have to go from scratch actually, so I basically had to sort of like add the additional photos that I shot over the course of the 2-3 year period, and I was actually done. Initially I thought of like making like a video from like making a Squarespace like website from scratch, but that's gonna take like 1 hour to 2 hours or maybe 3 hours, and that's gonna get a lot of hate. So instead I thought, why not give you guys sort of like a virtual tour of my website, and at the same time sort of like explain to you guys like what I do as a living, and at the same time what I did on my website, like how I sort of constructed it, and I guess make it casual and stuff like that, and just talk along the way. So yeah, so in order to like access my website, depends on if you use a smartphone or if you use a sort of like a desktop computer. I will actually try to explain it on both platforms because they're a little bit different like ways of doing it from what I experienced. So if you're going from the website, you can probably access my website via from my channel, which go to YouTube, you click on my icon, and there's this sort of like section where it says about, and you click on the about page, and when you actually scroll to the bottom, there's this sort of like details area where it says like for business inquiries, don't click on that. On bottom of that, my location, which is in Japan, and at the bottom it says links, and from there's like 3 locations. You don't have to donate me. There's my Instagram account, and at the bottom there's a portion that says website, and if you click on that, if you're using a desktop computer, you can basically access my website. Fair enough, actually. So if you're instead using a smartphone, you can basically do the exact same thing, except on a smartphone, when you click on my icon, I think below my icon there's sort of like an area where it says description. You click on that and you'll appear to some like similar page that I just mentioned, and at the bottom there's an area where it says website. You click on that and basically go to my website from your smartphone. And once you're in, there's actually this area where it says enter. You just click on that and you basically land onto my first page, and this first page is basically what I do as a living. And I keep on saying over and over again, I'm an e-commerce photographer specializing in apparel, men's apparel actually. And when you scroll down or scroll right, depending on what platform you use, you can basically like view the works that I did in the past. And not the most fascinating things ever, but I shoot like clothing, men's clothing, mostly expensive Italian clothes that I can never purchase in my life. But you get sort of like a gist of what I do as a living, and that's basically it. And probably people who are not used to seeing men's apparel made in Italy, I shoot mostly various brands like LBM 1911, Barba shirts, Tramarosa pants, GTA pants, Lardini Tagliatore, Jacobu Cohen, Gigi, there's like so many I shoot, but that's what I do as a living. So and I forgot to like mention this in the first part, but the way I sort of like constructed my website is that the first part is my main job, apparel is what I do, and on bottom below that, in that below section, I sort of made a folder of the shots that I shot with my film camera, so mostly my film photography. And when you go onto that part, I basically sort of constructed in a way that I sort of organized it, not in a periodical order, but more like the specific locations in Tokyo that I shot around, such as Tokyo Disneyland, Hotel New Grand in Yokohama. My friend had a wedding there. Tokyo International Forum, Lomography Purple, Sanrio Pure Land, Takanawa Gateway Station, and so forth. So when you click on like a specific like sort of like location, you can basically view the image that I shot there. And on below that, I made another section called Travel Japan, which I'm still working on, sort of like, and I only went to like one specific location, which is like you saw that video, Choshi, Japan, in Chiba Prefecture. A really interesting location to shoot photos if you're into like sort of like nature type of wildlife type photos. and I basically shot that area too, and hopefully I will have more coming in my future videos to come when this pandemic ends. So, and this is like one of the things that I love about Squarespace. I've used Wix, I've used WordPress, which was actually recommended by a friend, but I couldn't get the hang of it and came back to Squarespace. But what's great about Squarespace is that you get this sort of like really clean look, and they already have a default, not a default, but you can basically choose from various templates that's already provided on their sort of like main website. You can basically like choose, you can swap one for another. And at the same time, what's great about this like platform, especially for photographers, and my sister, who's also a graphic designer, loves using Squarespace, you can basically easily manage your photos in an orderly fashion due to the fact that you can basically drag and drop and drag and drop. It's like sort of like when you, I think back in the days when we shot with like film, we basically had a sort of like a printed version of that. We basically cut it into small like pieces like of photos, and we basically, you know, remember like organize like how should we organize the photos in a sequential like manner so it makes the story much more compelling and stuff like that. Squarespace makes that really, it makes it my life so much easier because I can basically sort of dump all my photos into this like, let's say, one folder, and I basically can like swap and like move one photo to a different location actually, and without like sort of like destroying the sort of like the format of the whole, you know, page actually. And this is like really interesting, and after I do that, it basically like shows how it would look after you made those changes. And when you look, like when you browse through one photo to the next, you can understand like if this story makes sense or not. And I guess this is like something that's really hard on doing on different like website types of platforms, while Squarespace, from my experience, this is a really unique and great experience for photographers, especially because you can basically cleanly organize your photos. And in my case, I basically have sort of like a folder, and within this folder I have like a gallery of like photos. So this gallery, so one gallery is the Cinestill 800T, below that is Tokyo Disneyland. This is another gallery, and below that it's another gallery, which is the Hotel New Grands Tokyo. And these like galleries are within a folder, so it's like using like a desktop computer, and you have a folder, and within that folder you have a bunch of folders. It's similar to that kind of concept on a Windows computer, and it's like really intuitive, easy to use. And at the same time, if you're like not into that, you can also make blogs, you can make events. And if you actually pay extra, if I'm right, the one that I have, I guess the entry level one, which is like $16 per month, that one you can basically only add like galleries, photos, and maybe if you're doing to product design or something like that, you can do that. But if you pay extra, you can basically like sell products online, sort of like an e-commerce site. So I don't have that much cash on hand, and I don't have any products being sold, so I'm not into that so e-commerce type of stuff. However, like if you're into like selling stuff on your website, you can do that, but you have to pay extra, maybe $20-30 per month for that to happen. So there's a lot of endless possibilities on this platform. And in addition to that, actually, if you actually like go to below the film photography section and the travel Japan section at the bottom, this was actually in the top when I actually recovered my website, but my photography school days, actually my photos actually remained on my website. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, I shouldn't show you guys that part, because back in the days when I was a photography student, I sort of like shot random stuff which caught my curiosity, and most of them like failed. And after I graduated, or before I graduated, I made a printed copy of it, which I guess it's great to like look back into. Not that much of an interesting thing to see, but I actually still have that on my website. So if you guys interested in seeing that, you can see my photography school days work back in the days, so 8 to 9 years ago. So yeah. And below that section, I added sort of like a contact about me section, sort of like, this is like essential when you're making a website. Like there might be people, clients who are looking for someone to do a specific shoot, and they want to know how should I like contact you. So this is like really essential if you're having a website, like have this contact page so that anyone can sort of like contact you directly. And below that, I stuck in my about me page, which you can see where I worked in my previous workplace. Oh crap, that's not good. But at the same time, instead of like writing the about me page, I actually wrote my resume right there. So I don't know, I might get headhunted somewhere. Who knows? But yeah, you can put a resume. You can be creative actually, and at the same time, this is also interesting about Squarespace. You can basically customize almost everything. You can basically customize the contact page. You can change your name to sort of like a nickname or something. You can basically change the format. You can move the name, the last name, the emails, the subject, the message, these boxes and stuff like that, which is quite neat. And I never tinkered around this area. The about me page is just plain simple. I just wrote the year where I graduated, where I worked, where I sort of quit my job, and where I sort of, and also add. Oh yeah, I actually added in 2020. I started a YouTube channel, so which is this actually. So that needs to be written on my resume. That's like something that's an achievement actually. So so yeah. And I guess not many people who talk about their Squarespace or a website talk about this, but this is like a function that I love. And because we're like photographers, we shoot a lot of photos, and if you're any kind of creator, all your like work starts to pile up, right? I have a lot of color natives right now. I have a lot of data stored on my hard drives and stuff like that. Same for websites. There are going to be times where you really don't want, although you put that time and effort in making that specific, let's say, gallery on your website, on your Squarespace account, but because it turns out that you don't want that to be displayed on the public, you can actually take that part out and sort of save it onto your main Squarespace like account on your sort of like desktop or your PC actually, in a sort of like an area where you can basically sort of like keep it. However, you can have it so that it won't display on your website. What I'm trying to say is that like on my website, my public website that's being like displayed, I only have my apparel main job section, the film photography section, and travel Japan section, and my photography school days section actually. But when I scroll down to the left bottom, this is only what I can see. This isn't like released to the public. There's these areas where I basically sort of have these blunders in life where I don't want to like display my photos to the public because I'm not confident in that, and because I shot these back in the days when I was sort of like a complete amateur. I mean, I can basically save this on my sort of like website. However, it's not like being displayed publicly, but more like it's being displayed only on my PC. So I can basically hold on to it, and if I want it to come back onto the public, I can basically do that. So it's sort of like being saved on this like platform. However, I can basically just stick in things that I don't want to like showcase, but I don't want to like delete it permanently. If I delete it, I have to like remake it, you know? So this is like a really cool feature that Squarespace has, and because I shoot so many photos, there are like limited amount of photos that I want to post on my public website, but there are things I don't want to post. So I basically sort of like save this onto the bottom left part of the website, which is like really quick, really neat. And I don't see this function being on sort of like a different like platforms like Wix and stuff like that, Wix and WordPress. I never seen this function. And if I would ever want that specific like section to be on my website, I can basically drag and put it on the top part of there, and that area will be showcased on my website. But unfortunately, I'm not gonna showcase it because it's not professional in my opinion. So that's basically sort of like my online tour of my website. And what's great about Squarespace is you can sort of like incorporate your other SNS social media links into your website. And if you go to the first part of the page where it says enter, actually, if you look at the bottom, there's these links for my LinkedIn, my email, and also my sort of like YouTube. There's an icon there, and you can basically go to my YouTube account via there, or you can go to my linked profile, or you can basically send me an email, or I forgot to add my Instagram account to this website, so I will need to do that sooner. So yeah, that's basically it on my virtual tour of my website. Hope you guys enjoy this. And there's like one concept that I sort of came up. It's my biased view perspective. I'm gonna go off a little bit of a topic, and this is sort of like compared to when I made my website back in photography school 8-9 years ago. I could not make that much of a sense of why I made a website, and I couldn't sort of link that to my life. Like, it's just a website and I can't go further than that, and I couldn't find that sort of like benefit of making a website. However, 2020, when I started my YouTube channel, now 2022, I have an Instagram account and stuff like that, I realized that having just a website, it's not that important. However, it's much more important to have more social media content. When I say that, would be like Instagram, website, YouTube, might be TikTok and stuff like that. Because I remember like seeing a financial video of a person saying that your net wealth equates to this triangle. The top triangle is how much you save. The left triangle is like how much you invest. The top right is like how much financial asset you have. The larger the surface area, the larger your net wealth. And that could be implemented into your social media account of gathering followers, gathering people to see your content. If you have a YouTube account, if you have an Instagram account, if you have a website, in addition to that, if you have a TikTok account, if you have a Vero account, if you have some kind of other like social media to share, actually, the larger the surface area, the more people you're gonna penetrate into that field. And you guys probably are noticing it, but people who see my like website, people who watch my YouTube video, people who watch my Instagram are in a slightly different demographic, meaning they live in different countries, they live in different parts of the world, they are in different age brackets, and they might be a male, they might be female, and those kinds of demographics. And what I'm trying to say is that there are some like social media that are like effective in specific like areas of demographic. And while I was like starting my YouTube channel, I realized, because when you start a YouTube channel, there's these analytics, like information, statistical data of what kind of people are watching your video, which countries. And I found out that on my YouTube channel, 22% of my viewers are American, 2% are from England, UK, and 1% from Japan, and then the remaining 90% is outside Japan. While when I look at my website, they're mostly like from Japan and stuff like that. And what I'm trying to say is that if you lure specific people from one direction, you can sort of like direct feed them into the other direction, because you have a website which surrounds with links where you can basically like feed into your sort of like other social media, Instagram, website, or maybe your YouTube account. I think it's becoming much more important in my mind to have various ways of sort of like finding people and letting them know that you do creative stuff and stuff like that. So I'm going off topic, but this is sort of like my biased opinion. But I guess having one website along with various other social media is important as of 2022. And I know that a lot of people will say that it is really expensive for some to have a Squarespace account or any kind of website account, because you basically have to pay the subscription fee. And if I'm right, it's gonna range around $10 to maybe $15, $16 for Squarespace. But when you consider like compared to like hiring someone to make a website for you, like an IT engineer, to like maintain and make like some kind of like tweaks in your website, I think when you look in the longer term of the spectrum, it's much cheaper to sort of like, instead of like sort of like employing an IT engineer, it's much more cheaper to sort of like have it done for you, and Squarespace is one of those websites that can offer you that service. And at the same time, they have like services. If you have any problems, if you have any questions, they have a 24/7 sort of like service counter or service chat actually. So you can basically have some inquiries regarding your website if you want to tweak it the way you want it, but you're not sure. They can help for you. So this is like really interesting, and they have been really helpful, especially when making my website. So yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoy my video on my virtual tour of my sort of like website. Hope you guys enjoy it. Have a great day. It is sunny out. I'm gonna go out to shoot photos. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace out.